Okay, I'm going to respond to listening to Lewis, and I don't think that I got the name of his interview person that he was talking to on the Crusades, but it did feel like that they were talking to me. So I'm just going to say a few notes. Um, on the, I guess we could call this what should a therapist be able to do? Although I'm still like wondering if being a therapist is even possible, or if that's just like another situation where you get to the place where you have to do whatever you imagine getting help for yourself. But I can try and imagine what would not be a good idea for, or at least I don't think it's a very good idea. So the thing was brought up about the issue was brought up about imagining. Lewis said he tried to imagine himself wanting to commit suicide, and he did a presentation on it, and he was very surprised by the kind of comments that he got about other people relating to that discussion. And like, I don't really like, from my personal opinion, I don't really think that's a good idea to imagine yourself being in that state of mind if you've never been in that state of mind to try and help people, because you didn't have the experience. So how could you really help anybody out of that situation? It's imaginative. um like, that's, I just don't think, I don't think that that's a good practice to do. I think the best practice to do is to think about what kind of person you actually are, and focus on that. Like, your life doesn't have to be about um trying to help those less fortunate than you. It's like when you study something, or at least that's how, like, I kind of perceive it. When you study something, you should be studying things that you want to also solve for yourself. And there is the aspect of like the spiritual element of why anybody would even be contemplating death. It's going to be a much deeper thing um, going on as to the type of lifestyle the person is in, and all of that other stuff that I discussed about. It's I think it has everything to do with behavioral um, enlightenment to guide you to to change whatever error of your ways that are harming to yourself. So that's my opinion about that. Now, I don't know how you could put yourself in the position to think that you could help anybody for an experience that you've never gone through just by trying to imagine it. Now, you could possibly try and befriend a person, or something like that, but to offer advice on something that you don't have experience of, no, I would not do that. um as far as like um talking about the way of peace, and the Buddhism, and the Bodhi being two different types of what you call it, spiritual teachers or guides. One being one that the the Buddhist. It was said that the Buddhist has reached a state of peace, and his line of thought is more about saying to find peace within yourself, and the Bodhi, I guess if I remember correctly, is saying that um, if you want to help other people, the best way to help other people is to do what is best for yourself. Is that what I was understanding? Or is that the Buddhist thought? I'm not sure. But that's what I think about this thing about self taught and autodidactic. If you're living according, if your focus, and I want to try and correct this idea of this dance that I mentioned, because it was mentioned about salsa dancing also, which I had written about the dance between the self and the other. The self and the other that I'm trying to describe is something within your mind that you're trying to create. Okay, so if you're self-taught and you're trying to um, let that be seen, then that other in your mind is more than likely yourself. It's just that you're imagining yourself as two, because um, you're reflecting back to yourself by passing that back and forth about what you would appreciate if there was another person, but you can't make an accurate assessment on if there were another person, if there's not any other person in your life. Because why is it more helpful to like say how you want to be for another person when there is not really another person to figure out your own self? Like, if you actually try to have those discussions with other people, then it's not figuring out yourself. So, if that makes any sense, like, I imagine that there's two people, but both of those people are me. I can't accurately say that anybody would be into the things that I'm into, because there is no other me. But I can't feel good about giving of myself if I don't imagine there was another me to to be considerate of. See, like, if if you try to pretend like there is somebody who is contrary to you, then you're at odds with yourself, because you're trying to give or receive something that you wouldn't want for yourself. And it's really just an exercise, or at least I think an exercise to get more in depth with your own understanding of your self conduct. Because there's, at least for me, there's so much, like, I can't put myself in the situation to do anything for or receive anything from anybody, which I don't think is good for myself. I don't want to give it, and I don't want to take it. And that's it's simply a thought exercise. And I don't know, it's like, if you could just consider the fact of, like, okay, what would be considered screwing somebody over? Okay, now that is like, you're thinking that somebody, um just in your mind, deserves less than you do. And really, you can't actually put yourself in that situation, because there's all kinds of people that do all kinds of different things in this world. And to try and imagine you can get into their place and be actually equal with them is not possible, because everybody's in the position of whatever position in life they're in. Like I could try and imagine myself as a like getting to this place where I do not have the skills or abilities to even be in, and then imposing some kind of guilt on myself that I'm not smart enough as this other person, or like, somebody who's able to be a supply person and products. Any of those kinds of ideas, I could impose a false sense of guilt on myself, which I can't do. I have to work with what I've got and learn what I can and kind of get an imaginative sort of thought as how to give of myself as I currently am right now. And that's how you feel sort of a sense of being charitable, because you're not hoarding all of these thoughts that you think all to yourself. You're letting that be out, even if like there might not be anybody who needs to know what you're thinking or going through, because they're trying to have their own self discovery. You don't know those things, but opening up about it is a way to continue that self development. Now, it's a lot harder to read a book and figure out. At least I think. I mean, it's a stepping stone to have found some literature that you connect with and try and understand, but to be a spiritual teacher or a guide of that information which you did not create is a little bit difficult, I would say. You're going to have to figure out your own conduct for living and what has actually worked for yourself, I think, is the most important thing to do. And that's your personal preference for whatever works for yourself. Now, as far as like what made me uncomfortable was that Lewis said he got hard um, in a field of bluebonnets, bluebells in the woods, and he had made it as a joke, but it was like I didn't like it because that's not the kind of relationship that I'm trying to pursue, and to have like I know that you like the sexual aspect is a part of your human nature, but if somebody already knows that's not what you're seeking from trying to get to know a person, then I think that's a boundary that doesn't need to be crossed. Now, as far as my thinking about these children's names and how those are psychological concepts and also potentially a child's name, I don't know if that's possible. I don't want those names to be turned into some kind of sexual concept that is not true to imagine the body physically, because that's not what those names are about, such as the Salem Blue. Like you get like it's I could think of it as a strengthening exercise as to what I mentioned about what happened to me when I was in high school, and having like to rebuild myself after those experiences. But I don't want to recreate any kind of experience where it's just not appropriate. But I think the mature thing to do is be like, I really thought that I considered Lewis to be my friend and somebody that I was curious about, because some of the things that it seemed like he built with to do his uh, what would you call it, therapeutic practice, which he wants to do. It's what it seems like. Um, that felt like a kind and heartfelt thing that he did. So I'm not going to jump to conclusions about the comment, because it could be that it was a way to get me to open up more about what I actually think in a safe space, and and not to just be shutting the door as to thinking that that was a terrible thing to do, because you look at the good side too. They spent, now I was like, it said that it was a month old conversation, but I could tell by some of the vocabulary words it seemed like it was current. And the nostril strip on his nose like seemed to be an indicator to me about what I said about the adenoids and the tonsils, and trusting the inner guidance from yourself more and more. And so, those are kind aspects in the circumstance to help me understand, and to help me try and gain some trust in the world. And so I related that to sort of like your breath of life, because the Mexican pipeline was mentioned. And if I like do the suggestion of aiming upwards as to being up here in my halo and seeing the goodness in what was done. And that was another thing that is interesting to me about the Mexican pipeline in, what was it, Escondido? It was that the full name? That surfing a pipeline, and then the the thought of of the pipeline being here also, that was an interesting element to place with that Mr. Yellow and Blue poem that I wrote. And so I do feel like that conversation was beneficial. It's like you don't always have to have yourself in a complete, like, I know the topic was was being peaceful, but if you don't have anything to mentally digest and think about, then then that is like another example of kush kush. Like, you're not going to get very good listening skills and speaking skills if there's not any sort of like this, of something to sort of solve in a conversation as to what you were sort of feeling through the whole thing. So I don't know about the like where else was I going? Oh, the nose strip thing. Um, I sort of like, it sort of looked like I I thought of the pig for a little while because the way it made the nose look, and I thought about Simon, um, and the listening thing, and um, there's so many connections with Simon now, and the color, and then I started thinking about the color blue, and the blue jeans, and some other elements of family building with that, because Rin put the idea in my head about Simon Piggy from Lord of the Flies, although that's not what I really want to relate it to. But it's like there's hope also in that conversation about how these connections feel like it's there has to be more to what we're doing, like with career building or family building or friendship building. There just has to be more to it, I feel. And so these things that are getting brought up from the past or the present or the future are all um, sort of things that can be tapped into or discussed, or however you want to put that situation out there. But it's still, I do have that feeling that there's a greater purpose in our connections together. That there's more that we want for, or has to be more that we want for what we're doing. It just like, I think that it's important to talk about what your thoughts and feelings are. So let me know your thoughts. My inner voice says, Babykins, I love you. Thank you for your input.